Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to this, our service of worship here in First Church. And welcome to everyone who is joining us over Facebook at the minute as we live stream this service. And not only will people be watching us as we broadcast this, but they will also maybe watch later on during the day. We welcome Ian Mackerel to our church organ this morning. Some of you may have heard Richard had a family bereavement during the week and is at the funeral today. Very sadly, Richard's aunt passed away very suddenly. So our thoughts and prayers go out to Richard and the whole family circle. Just to let you know that I am on holiday next week. So in the event of a pastoral emergency, if you can contact the Reverend Chris Hudson or the Reverend Alistair Bell from All Souls. If you're not sure how to get in contact with them, then if you get in touch with Pamela, and she'll put you in their direction. And next Sunday, David Kerr is taking the service here in First Church. I think these are all the announcements. Come now to this quiet place, to the centre of calm in what is a strange world. Come now to the God who knows your every thought and yet cares. Come now to the God who has heard your every cry, has suffered your hard hearts and yet cares. Come now to the God of energy and calm. Now to the God who walks with you and bids you rest. Come now and find the healing you need. Come and find God, for God calls all of us. We join together in prayer. We are born in hope, raised in hope, nurtured in hope, loved in hope. We are comforted in hope, and we suffer in hope. We endure in hope and overcome in hope. We hope in the one who has endured all things, that we might know freedom. Hope in the one who has given us his Spirit, that we may have power. Hope in the one who has loved us beyond death, that we might experience life. It is the mystery, infinite holiness and majesty that draws us to you, O God. It's our dependency on your faithfulness, your limitlessness, the love that holds us here. It is your humility, your total selflessness that draws us to your sacrifice. It is our dependency on your graciousness, your grace that holds us here. It is your constancy, your always there-ness, your warm embrace that draws us into your arms. It is our dependency on your gentleness, your patience that holds us here. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Now we invite Mr. Billy Kirk to sing for us.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace, a for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But all the lands have sunshine too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, the God of all the nations, a song of peace for the land and for mine.
Good morning, everyone. Our first reading today is from an essay written by Nick Cave. Nick Cave is an Australian songwriter and musician. He's probably sort of in the calibre of the late Leonard Cohen. His music deals with a lot of the themes of religious life, including mercy. One of his most famous songs was The Mercy Seat, which was recorded by Johnny Cash, and Nick himself was generous enough to say that Johnny's version was much better than his own. So this past month he's been asked two questions by Valerio in Turin, which was, "What is mercy for you?" And from Francis in Los Angeles, "What do you think of cancel culture?" So he's answered the two together, and here's what he has to say. Dear Valerio and Francis, mercy is a value that should be at the heart of any functioning and tolerant society. Mercy ultimately acknowledges that we are all imperfect, and in doing so allows us the oxygen to breathe, to feel protected within a society through our mutual fallibility. Without mercy, a society loses its soul and devours itself. Mercy allows us the ability to engage openly in free-ranging conversation, an expansion of collective discovery toward a common good. If mercy is our guide, we can have a safety net and mutual consideration, and we can, to quote Oscar Wilde, play gracefully with ideas. Yet mercy is not a given. It's a value we must nurture and aspire to. Tolerance allows a spirit of inquiry, the confidence to roam freely, to make mistakes, to self-correct, to be bold, to dare to doubt, and in the process to chance upon new and more advanced ideas. Without mercy, society grows inflexible, fearful, vindictive, and humourless. Francis, you've asked about cancel culture. As far as I can see, cancel culture is mercy's antithesis. Political correctness has grown to become the unhappiest religion in the world. its once honourable attempt to reimagine our society in a more equitable way, now embodies all the worst aspects that religion has to offer, and none of the beauty. Moral certainty and self-righteousness shorn even of the capacity for redemption. It has become quite literally bad religion run amok. Cancel culture's refusal to engage with uncomfortable ideas has an asphyxiating effect on the creative soul of a society. Compassion is the primary experience, the heart event out of which emerges the generosity and genius of the imagination. Creativity is an act of love that can knock up against our most foundational beliefs, and in doing so brings forth fresh ways of seeing the world. This is both the function and glory of art and ideas, a force that finds its meaning in the cancellation of these difficult ideas, hampers the creative spirit of a society, and strikes at the complex and diverse nature of the culture. But this is where we are. We are a culture in transition, and it may be that we're heading towards a more equal society. I don't know. But what essential values will we forfeit in the process? Love, Nick. Amen.
Our thanks to Billy and to David and to Ian there. Our second reading comes from the Old Testament, from Genesis chapter 45, verses 1 to 15. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out, "Send everyone away from me." So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, so dismayed were they at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come closer to me." And they came closer. He said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in this land these 2 years, and there are 5 more years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and a lord of all his house, and a ruler over the land of Egypt. Hurry, go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your herds and all that you have. I will provide for you there, since there are 5 more years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have will not come into poverty. And now your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see that it is my own mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father how greatly I am honored in Egypt, and all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here.' And then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, while Benjamin wept upon his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. And after that, his brothers talked with him." Amen. It seems to me that family get-togethers, and that includes weddings and funerals and a whole range of celebrations, sometimes can have a habit of veering off into unexpected directions. And perhaps a new record was set a few days ago. I wonder if you saw the clip on TV about that Lebanese bride who was having her photograph taken just before her wedding. This beautiful young bride in Beirut was posing for the wedding photographs in a picturesque corner of the city. And the clip, as she was being filmed, happened to catch the blast from the massive ammonium nitrate explosion arriving. And it wrecked the beautiful scene, including devastating the adjoining reception area and even, for good measure, the bridal suite. And true, this was a real-life drama, but we can hardly call it an unavoidable accident, because there is a backstory to it. Because we now learn that the authorities were at least partly to blame in that corruption and short-sighted decisions hadn't prevented the explosion, despite several years of written warnings about the impending danger. This means the question is now that, quite apart from the devastation of much of the city of Beirut, the key problem for all the citizens of Lebanon is not so much what caused many of their dwellings and businesses to be ruined and people to be killed, but rather how can the situation now be resolved? Surely it can't be left as a curious news item. As with many disasters, it certainly won't get sorted out until the background problems are confronted and a positive way forward is found. Like many of the stories in both the Old and New Testaments, it is not just that these anecdotes record situations where occasions have gone wrong. There have always seemed to be a human failure at the heart of all these stories. But what if we remember, like most of the stories in the Bible, this set of circumstances being portrayed can be understood on many levels. This time I want to look at part of the story that we just read that portrays the characters as very real, very human, and facing a dilemma. Let me stress that, like most real people, both Joseph and his brothers come across as flawed human beings. And remember, there was a sense in which Joseph brought his initial problems upon himself. He tormented his brothers. He boasted and told them in no uncertain ways how much more important he was than them. The brothers were not only resentful, they too were absolutely morally wrong when they had plotted to kill their brother. That they had sold him into the Egyptians' hands rather than kill him hardly justifies their actions. These days we would call such action human trafficking. The years of slavery and prison left Joseph facing what would have been enough to fuel his resentment and his rage to the limit. And there are many layers of meaning in this story. Joseph is, in effect, now sitting pretty and no longer has any need of those family members who had turned against him. Nevertheless, when his brothers unexpectedly turn up and he recognizes them as those who had abandoned him and, in effect, sold him into slavery, they should have expected no mercy. That he did not immediately reveal himself to his brothers also suggests that he was initially playing with them as a cat might play with a mouse. They had done the unforgivable, and now the tables were well and truly turned. And then comes the true surprise. Because these brothers are not just forgiven, they are virtually rewarded. Joseph has taken his anger and transferred it into anger about their plight. We sometimes pretend that anger has no place as a human emotion amongst those who claim faith. And yet anger can be a great motivator. However, the resolution of that anger often needs creative thought. Instead of being sent back to Canaan empty-handed, which would have been far more than they deserved, they find themselves being offered sanctuary land for pasture, a place for their father, as well as the brothers, and freedom to live relatively close to Joseph, but sufficiently far away from the Egyptian population, who as their natural enemies might have made their lives very difficult. I suppose, in a way, this discovery of the creative act is the real test of forgiveness. The words, "I forgive you," are what most of us consider equating to forgiveness, but they can still mask long-term unease. When you've been genuinely wronged by another, shallow words may in fact not be enough to re-establish real relationships. On the other hand, words are an integral part of action. But there's something you may also have noticed. When Joseph says, "Now you must tell my father of all my splendor in Egypt and all that you have seen, you must hurry and bring my father down here," there is still the basic weakness he had from the beginning. The pride and the insistence, if you like, that the brothers should really notice that he was now still somebody of significance. And this is one of the things that many of the Old Testament characters display. They are, in part, flawed characters. Moses starts his leading of the Israelites out of Egypt with an act of murder. David rapes the wife of a friend and then arranges to have her husband done away with. Several of the prophets show great signs of reluctance to do what they know God calls them to do. They are real in the sense that, just like us, they have flaws in their character. Their faith, then, has no prerequisite of perfection, nor the demand that their actions are only effective if they are perfect. Yet nor, if we are ruefully honest, would we say it was a solution which was perfect. Nevertheless, the forgiveness was real and recognizable. And the tensions which had been building, which could so easily have been resolved with an act of violence. Joseph could have finished off the family, and in that context brought the story of the people who later became the nation of Israel to a premature end. A common error is to believe that the sort of love mentioned in the Bible, which the Greeks called agape, is merely a feeling. And I'm sure that some people who come along to churches share that misconception in believing that somehow having good feelings about people and situations is a complete virtue in itself. Why else would we sometimes feel good than in our prayers we had listed all our concerns for the sick and the poor and the victims of disaster? One learning from the story of Joseph and his brothers is that there is also not only a time for action, there are occasions when action is actually necessary if a situation is to get any closer to resolution. And there is a postscript to the story. The story doesn't just end with Joseph and Benjamin embracing in an emotional scene of reconciliation. I don't know if you noticed, but the other brothers hadn't said anything at that point. And the story finishes by saying, "And Joseph and his brothers talked." An act of forgiveness and reconciliation is only ever one stage of a journey. The significant act had indeed happened, but now, as for us, the implications and continuing story must be played out for the forgiveness to find its meaning. And now that part that specifically speaks to us. The Lebanese fertilizer explosion is too serious in consequence of a destroyed port and a capital city together now with a broken political system, for its desperate inhabitants to provide their own solutions. As with many instances of disaster, we in the wealthy West have resources which could help. We often hear it says that Jesus points us to the answers to many of life's serious problems. Should we now be amongst those stepping forward to offer a way forward? The story of forgiveness is one which should touch us all, for we are all failed and flawed people, you and I included. We all need to seek forgiveness, you and I included. We all need to show forgiveness, you and I included. It's the only way we can move forward as a congregation, as a nation, as a society in general. We have all made mistakes, you and I included. But if we show forgiveness and tolerance and love, we can find a way forward. These have been difficult times for us as a congregation, not just because of COVID, but because of things that happened just a few months ago. Things that I was partly responsible for. And so I ask for forgiveness and I ask for your tolerance and your acceptance. We do have a future as a congregation. Maybe not in the way that we once saw, but we do have a future. But it is only through forgiveness and through restoration and action that we can come together and move forward into the future. Amen. Now I'm going to invite Billy to sing again for us.
Swing low, sweet chariot, come on, for carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, come on, for carry me home. I looked over John, and what did I see? Come on, for to carry me home. A band of angels coming after me, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. If you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home, tell all my friends I'm coming too, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Thank you, Billy. That was beautiful. Again, we join together in prayer. For all whose day starts with anxiety, as they leave the security of home, worrying about the risk of infection, particularly those whose health or age classifies them as vulnerable. Loving God, be close, keep them safe, along with all those whose tasks today include the care of the frail and the elderly. And for all of us, grant wisdom to make sensible choices, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. Breath of life and love, disturb the dark clouds of fear and anxiety that trouble our lives. And in this gentle breeze, as clouds disperse, may we sense hope and healing as your light breaks in and through our hearts and minds and shines out into the world. We are beginning to learn that this is a fragile world. But there are times, Lord, when we are reminded of our human fragility, needing your loving care through times of anxiety and illness. And so touch us, O God, with healing hands and words, that we might walk together through this temporary darkness and into your glorious light. Bless the good neighbours, O God, who call to check that all is well, and those unable to get out, who come with gentle acts of service, bringing rays of light into a day that would otherwise be cheerless. Bless all those who are worried about what their exam results will mean for them, who are struggling with a sense of failure or depression because of what the future holds for them. Bless those who struggle with their own mental illness because of COVID. for those who find little hope in the future. Bless all those who give of their time to look after others, in following your good example, that this might become a better and more caring world in which to live. These prayers we offer up. Amen. Thank you to Ian, to David, and to Billy for taking part in this morning's service. Thank you for coming out this morning. And thank you if you're joining with us via Facebook Live. We hope you have enjoyed being part of our little church community here this morning. In the darkness, God, source of strength, be present with us to guard and protect, rest and encourage. In the dawn, God, spring of truth, reveal yourself to us and inspire and guide, refresh us and renew us. In the daylight, God, Spirit of love, show us the way to justice and peace, to unity and to joy. Amen.